Welcome back to another episode of the Goonery. Myself and Brandon here. Going to be talking Bears as always, little league-wide talk for the NFL, and of course, quite possibly the biggest game ever. We could argue. And but first and foremost, let's get the bad stuff out of the way. Brandon, first and foremost, just want to ask, how has Matt Eberflus not lost his job yet? And how was he allowed back onto the team plane from Detroit?
Do you want the analyst answer or do you want the real raw answer?
Let's go real. Let's go
Okay,
real.
sure. So it's as clear as day that the Chicago Bears have a bunch of spineless cowards running this organization that thinks that they're so above letting go a coach middle of the season because they think it's going to be some type of continuity issue. I would like to think because I don't know. I'm not in the room. I wouldn't know. But it's as clear as day that they they don't have a spine. I mean, maybe they're all on the same page as Matt Eberflus when he talks about them being close. They're right there, and there'll be some type of breakthrough. Now, he could have been right if they had won on Sunday, but
Yep.
they didn't. The same issues kept persisting. The conservative play calling, the just bad game management, and the thing is, let's be very, very honest. The Bears played very, very good on defense, but also, well, that is true. What also is true is that Jared Goff was giving out gifts, and we're not even in December yet.
It,
So
I mean, I'm going to be completely blunt. You can't lose a game when Jared Goff throws three
you
interceptions.
can't,
It just
you cannot.
it cannot happen. It's flat out inexcusable, and it's genuinely, I think it's malpractice at this point that this front office is letting this coaching staff continue to be around this team because you are seeing the flashes everywhere finally. And I know it hasn't been pretty, but you're seeing the flashes and seeing, I think it's very safe to say that the Bears will not be drafting a quarterback come April. And I, I saw a stat. I know the competition has not been great, but in Justin Fields' last three full starts, let's break it down.
Okay.
786 passing yards, nine touchdowns to one interception with a 126 quarterback rating, 886 yards on the ground. So that's about 975 total yards of offense in his last three full starts. That comes out to 324 yards per game, three touchdowns per game, and a third of an interception per game.
He's been damn impressive,
It
and I
you
think
can
one of
see,
the
you've seen the improvements, and I think that I don't want to say that the play calling was good this weekend because it was not.
in the first half it was at
First half,
least.
yes, exactly, yes, but guess what? You're failing if you go 50, if you get 50% in the classroom. So
Yeah.
they let him run the football again. First time this whole year, it looked like the Justin Fields that we saw last year, where you're like, oh, damn, okay. So we know he can do it with his legs. Let's see if he can do it with his arm. And while the numbers didn't pop off the page by any means whatsoever with his arm, still accounted for right about 300 yards of total offense.
You know what's funny? I hate to be this guy, but I have to be this guy because we talk about the we're very big on stat lines, and I think when you coming into this season, when people just simply saw the stat line for Justin Fields, they said, "How in the world is this guy going to make a jump? I mean, he could barely pass over 200 yards." But the fact of the matter is that you see a lot of players around the league, they don't necessarily throw for 300 yards a game. They don't, and quite honestly, sometimes they don't need it. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact of the matter is that when you have a guy like Justin Fields who has a above, I would say average to above average receiving core, and you know that he's very efficient with running the football, you have to find that healthy mix of that. And the problem with that is it could always be that simple, but it's not when it comes to this coaching staff, and that's why I want to expand upon, because the arrogance from this coaching staff is so crazy to me. And once you get into the whole thing of we're not executing, we're not executing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize how arrogant that sounds? Now, listen, I completely understand. There could be some game plans in place that is just not being executed, sure. But when we talk about fundamental issues that are happening on this football team that continue to persist, is that a lack of execution, or is that just being poorly coached? And press conference, every press conference, you see the arrogance and the lack of accountability just radiating off of Matt Eberflus.
Yep.
And I want to remind everybody of this. I made this point, I think a month or two ago. Matt Eberflus, there was not a single team willing to hire you as their head coach. Probably a reason for that, but we were just the idiots to do it. So for you to sit up there and always preach about we didn't execute, where is the accountability coming from you? But most importantly, where is the accountability coming from within that room,
Mm-hmm.
within that building? I like Ryan Poles. I think he could turn out to be a good GM. But at what point do you draw the line at, dude, you're not winning games, but you're also not putting any of the blame on yourself? Because we always teach the players to put no matter if it's like Justin Fields said the one time, even if it's a drop pass, it's on me.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is supposed to fall on me. Why isn't that the same thing for the head coaches?
The
Why
man
is why is
upstairs, from the man upstairs, logically.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to. You're right. It's supposed to come from there, but it doesn't. But why is it that the standards are always being pushed back for people that are in power? They are the people that's responsible for this football team, whether it be fair or not. That's just the way the game goes. So obviously, and we know this for a long time, but leadership just continues to be an issue on this team. And granted, if we go out and get a head coach that we actually like, that is actually intriguing, when inevitably he has struggles, because like these, the young head coaches, they have struggles. So
Mm-hmm.
when that happens, who is going to be to hold the coach accountable? And I think that's where it gets a little scary, because you have a guy right now that refuses to hold the head coach accountable when he has 6 wins, which, by the way, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud are about to surpass that this year in one
In one
season, by
year.
the
In
way.
1 year. Yep.
So you
With
don't,
no
so
signs of
where's the
slowing down, by the way.
none? They're making the playoffs, by the way. They're making the playoffs. So
Mm-hmm.
where's the accountability coming from? Because it's not coming from you. So where is it coming from? And that is, to me, that we can talk about all the issues with the Bears, but that to me is one of the biggest ones, because it's going to reflect on the play on the field.
So no, I agree. And for years and years, I mean, we've been saying nothing's going to change until the McCaskies come in or leave, right? And they made what, for all intents and purposes, was a home run hire to come in and be the president and CEO of the franchise with Kevin Warren
Correct.
from the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
I really want, like, I know we don't have much visibility into what he is actually doing as team president, right? That's not something you typically see. But what is he thinking right now? Is he handcuffed like it's like the McCaskies have done for years? Is it a Jerry Reinsdorf situation where it's just essentially a title that means nothing and you're collecting a paycheck? I just, you would expect more at this point, in my opinion, at least. I don't know. And I don't know if this is a nothing or what, but just let's hear something from Kevin Warren. Let's just hear something from his mouth, good or bad. I don't care.
So a lot of the times, as far as I remember, last year being the exception, anytime we would hear from Ted Phillips, it was addressing the team,
Mm-hmm.
until he ended up stepping down, and then George McCaskey decided to stand up and say something.
Yep.
All Kevin Warren is here to do is answer the questions that George McCaskey should be answering.
Yes, absolutely.
It's going to happen, and it's going to look so insulting because we actually have a football guy as the CEO of the Chicago Bears. He's actually a football guy.
Yep.
But is he going to play a part in any of the football decisions? I would love to know because there's people in the building
Yeah.
that tweet and know these things. Is he going to be in the building when they are going to hire their next head coach? Is he going to have any say whatsoever? Because
He should.
he's a football guy. He was brought there for football reasons. So is that going to happen? Is my question. And if not, then what the hell was he hired for other than what I just stated?
Mm-hmm. No, it's just confusing because everyone across the sports world just praising the Bears, and maybe that's all the Bears wanted at the end of the day. And it
Yeah,
sucks. It sucks to even say that, but most likely that is the case.
yeah, definitely.
So another thing that I wanted to touch on with this coaching staff is just the overall lack of self-awareness and really narcissism at times that you've started
Oh
to
yeah.
see in press conferences. Eberflus saying, I don't remember if it was a post game on Sunday or if it was yesterday on Monday, but essentially saying like, "Oh, we called a good game on defense." Oh, wait, that's right, I called it. Of course, it was a good game. What? How do you pat yourself on the back with a loss like that? And it wasn't like the defense was making plays either on those turnovers. That was Jared Goff just throwing to the wrong team.
You know, I think someone needs to remind Matt Eberflus that if it wasn't for Phil Snow, his ass would have been out the door already.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely believe that Phil Snow. I mean, at this point, Phil Snow, Matt Eberflus may need to owe Phil Snow his life because you've seen the change in the defense. They have been better, all things considered. But for you to act as if you are instrumental in
Yeah,
the turnaround in this defense, brother, we know.
just lose me
We
on that,
know.
man. Just lose me on that. No, and it's just I don't think anyone on this team respects him either at this point.
There's no way. There's no way. And the thing is, football players aren't stupid. When they hear stuff like this and they see that the press conferences, or it goes back to Justin Fields' injury status when going into Carolina. I mean, they probably think this dude is a joke. But it has to be this of why he hasn't been fired. It has to be the fact that they have to commit to sucking. Because
Yeah.
if there's a guy who's going to suck, it's
Oh,
going to
it's
be Matt
Eberflus.
Eberflus.
Hey, he's going 1-1 in a draft of sucking. Let's be completely
Oh,
clear.
1,000%.
And but I have to ask, do you think, say they fire Eberflus before the season's over? I know I
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, I think it's malpractice if he continues to coach this team. It's not like they're going to start winning football games either without him there. I mean, honestly, let's be real. Do you see them firing him and they just magically start winning a shit ton of football games to close out the year here?
So I remember you asking the question, I think maybe a month ago, of what will change if the head coach is fired. And I gave you a simple answer, and I said it's a different voice. When a different voice is in the room, I feel like it just makes all the difference in the world. And I think the perfect example of that is the team that we just played on Sunday. When
Mm-hmm.
you have a voice that everybody buys into, when you have a scheme and a game plan that everyone buys into, everything just seems different. You have a coaching staff that plays to the strengths, because let's be honest, we have a good amount of guys on that roster that would start on an NFL team.
Oh
And
yeah,
you could have
absolutely.
said that last year. Could have said
Mm-hmm.
that last year with the defense, them playing more freely into their strengths. Big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Tremaine Edmonds has kind of struggled this year. Do I think a lot to do with it is maybe he's just not buying into the system? It's very possible.
For sure.
And then you go to the offensive side. We've heard the complaints about the coaching staff and what they're trying to get Justin Fields to do. They're trying to make him to a player that he's not.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get out from under all of those things that are hindering you, you start to play a little bit more freely. So I do think I think this season is absolutely a lost cause because there's just so much shit that has gone on there. It's just like it's kind of tough to just bring all that in just 1 week. You just turn everything around. It doesn't work that way. But do I think that there will be more competency without a lot of this guy, a lot of changes on the coaching staff, including head coach and offensive coordinator? Absolutely.
No, I mean, and that's valid. And so I mean, we could get into changing the coaching staffs. I know we've talked about it before, but I think it's starting to get a little bit more clear here as
Yeah.
the direction we're heading in. It's looking more and more likely that Eric Bieniemy is going to become the head coach of the Washington Commanders. So I think it's safe to say we can rule him out from.
What a joke Ron Rivera is for losing that game. He made Tommy DeVito look like an NFL quarterback. What a joke.
Tommy DeVito didn't even look like a Big Ten quarterback when he was at Illinois last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I still can't I can't believe that one.
A joke.
But so it looks like Bieniemy is going to be in Washington most likely, and I mean that rules him out. And then the Steelers, obviously, firing of Matt Canada. That's a job where I think a high profile guy could make a jump like Bieniemy there to like if just a similar type situation. Not that Tomlin's going anywhere, but just as a change of scenery almost. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure, but it's got to be Harbaugh, right?
He has to be the top of the list.
I mean,
It has to be.
it's got to be Harbaugh.
It's just one thing that because I have to reiterate this. I love Jim Harbaugh. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like he does burn bridges wherever he goes. That's going to be the concerning thing, and the thing is, like, obviously, you worry about the football stuff first because you're not in the building. Who gives a shit?
Mm-hmm.
But when you are, when you really think about it, because the Michigan's athletic director and him don't get along. He didn't get along with Jed York in San Francisco, and is he going to get along with George McCaskey? I don't think so.
Yeah,
I genuinely don't think so. So he has to be at the top of the list. You do what you can. You give him whatever money he wants. At least the Big Ten connections there with him and Kevin Warren. So maybe
mm-hmm.
that's a plus. But it's going to come down to, unfortunately, taking a swing on one of the young offensive coordinators, one of the young offensive minds in the league. And granted, the only two people, well, let's say three, only three people I will go out of that realm for are Mike McDonald of the Baltimore Ravens, Lou
Mm-hmm.
Anarumo of the Cincinnati Bengals, and the guy who we probably should have hired the first cycle, Dan Quinn.
Yeah. No, I mean that. While I still think Dan Quinn could be an effective head coach at this point. God, that hire just screams John Fox to me, though.
I get it. I completely get it. I really do. I really, really do.
And I don't know, like, don't get me wrong. I think he should be a head coach in this league. He's most likely a better head coach than at least a handful of guys at this
Oh
point
yeah,
in time. And what he's been able to do turning around that Cowboys defense, it's been impressive. Genuinely, I know they have a lot of talent there.
yeah.
It's been impressive what he's done there. God, now that you're saying that name, Brandon, it's going to be Dan Quinn. It's going to be Dan Quinn, isn't it?
He's not my first option. Would I be upset with it? Okay, I'll put it
Okay,
like this.
that's
I'll
the
put it
thing.
like this. It depends on the options.
Valid. Okay, no, that
Yeah, because let's say like a guy like Bobby Slowick is not going to go for a head coaching job. Ben Johnson or Shane Waldron is not going, or even Brian Johnson from the Eagles. If those guys aren't going, then it's like okay, like who do we have? And at that point, you just gotta throw up a Hail Mary and hope for the best to get a good offensive coordinator. But other than that, it really depends on it because like you know who my number one option is. So if he's not available, a defensive minded head coach, and here's the thing, I genuinely believe that the defensive minded head coach can work with a young quarterback. I think that's a myth. I think it's a myth.
oh, I mean,
And
I agree that it's a myth. I completely agree that it's a myth.
yeah,
It's just a matter of who the defensive minded head coach is.
correct.
We just hired the wrong one.
Again, you know, it's so funny because you got what's his name?
We hired the guy
McDermott
that no one
in
else wanted.
Buffalo. It's here's the issue. Here's the true issue with the Eberflus hire. Like I think I made this point too a couple of weeks ago. He played Tampa 2. He has a base Tampa 2 defense, which is the same defense that Lovie Smith ran in 2006, and he is no longer working in the NFL, even though we owe him our life at this point.
Yep.
But it didn't work. But you want to capture the glory of 2006 when you lost the Super Bowl. So yeah, I do think if you hire a guy that is more modern to the game, I think the results will be better. And of course, you got to hire a go offense coordinator, but I think the results will be better.
Valid. No, that is very valid. And going back to a name you said a little earlier, Brian Johnson, that's a name I really haven't seen floated out there at all. It scares me that it could be a little too soon.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but the fit is there, man.
I mean, look who he's working with.
No, exactly.
Look, I mean,
Exactly.
it's a smooth transition. And I think you know, and if they are indeed going to stick with Justin Fields, that has to be something you can say. You have to look at Philadelphia as the blueprint.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, when you have an offensive coordinator that understands that you have to get the ball in your hand in the hand of your quarterback that can run, look at what Philadelphia did last night to kid. Well, 2 nights ago since recording. You know, it's going to be posted on Wednesday. But anyways, look what they did with Jalen Hurts. They got him out the pocket. They do this every single game
Dude,
because
it's
they
just
know he's dangerous with the ball in his hands. No matter if he's running or passing, he's committed to it. And
mhm.
I mean, come on, the fit is right there.
Yeah, no, I mean I wonder even if we don't bring him in as a head coach, I wonder if that's a guy who would be open to saying, "Hey, let me show I could do this outside of this system and come implement that here in Chicago." Because man, I would love that.
Now, here's the thing: I would not rule that out only because technically that's Nick Sirianni's offense.
Yeah,
He's just a
exactly.
passenger.
Yep.
So if he wanted to really segue himself to probably a head coaching job, which would probably be setting ourselves up there in a sense. But if he would want to segue himself into being a head coach, I think he would be the that would be the right hire. But I always go. Brian Johnson is somebody that we'll hear his name, but I often go back to Ben Johnson saying that he knows he could get something out of Justin Fields. I'm just like, man, you come on, man, it's right there. It's right there. Mind you, this is a rival head, is a rival coordinator that's saying this.
Yeah.
I mean,
I I mean, dude, I would love that hire. I mean, you've been banging that drum for months and months and months. But what he's been able to do these past 2 years, honestly, last 3 years in Detroit, because I mean, I know he was, I think technically before he became the OC, he was either what, the quarterback's coach or the passing court, some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he has turned Jared Goff into looking like a first overall pick again.
Yeah, and by the way, outside of Jared Goff, those receivers thrive in that system. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a number one receiver. If there was any doubt,
An elite number one receiver at that.
absolutely, absolutely. And Jameson Williams is coming along, and then you could plug in Craig Reynolds or Khalif Raymond, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the tight ends who we don't really know who they are yet outside of Sam Laporta, but Sam Laporta is going to be a stud for a long time in this league. So that guy, he knows how to develop players. I mean, it's outside of Jim Harbaugh, he has to be number two if you're the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and it's honestly no, yeah, it is 1 and 2. I was gonna say it's 1A, 1B, but no, there's a clear gap there.
It depends on who you're a fan of, because I'm a Michigan fan, and selfishly, I want Harbaugh to stay in Michigan, if I'm being honest. But I have to realize that
if he's gonna
in
leave,
life you have to sacrifice some things, so it's okay.
yeah. So I think that's a good segue into just talking about a little bit of news from around the league this past weekend. Philadelphia Eagles are now 9-1, and it feels like the worst 9-1 team of all time.
Not impressive. Not
It,
that impressive.
don't like 9-1 is always going to be impressive. There's except for what year was that? The Steelers in 2020. Everyone knew they were frauds, but
Yep. Mm-hmm.
the Eagles aren't frauds. That's the thing. At a point in time when they continue to win close, ugly games like this, you're just good if you find a way to grind it out when you're not playing well, right? I mean that's
Yeah.
the conclusion I think we can draw here.
You know, to answer your question, yes, but when I see the Eagles play, and I think this was proof in their game earlier this season, what the what the Eagles have showed me early in this season, what have shown me this whole season is that the Cowboys are not as far off as people think. Now,
I am right there with you.
and I was banging this drum last year until they became the Cowboys again, but whatever. But the Cowboys were literally inches away from being Philadelphia. I mean, if you're a Philadelphia fan, you're going to say a win's a win because that's what they do. Philadelphia fans are just like that. But when you look at that game on its surface, you have to think, damn, when we go to Dallas, what's the story going to be? How different is that game going to look? Because Philadelphia has proved that they can win on the road. They did it yesterday in Arrowhead by hook or by crook. If Valdez Scaling makes that catch, they probably lose that game. But
I'm going to go out on a limb here. Not probably, they do.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm going to be completely honest. He would have fallen down at what, the 2 yard line probably or so. And
yeah.
You really think you're going to stop Isaiah Pacheco, who looks like a rabid Wolverine on like steroids with running the football?
Wow, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean,
Rabid Wolverine on steroids is kind of crazy. Why didn't he throw the red flag on
that? I mean, dude, the way he runs, it just like, or maybe how about a toddler who just did a key bump? I don't know. They're just like the energy and effort that he puts into every single run. It's wildly impressive. It's not sustainable, but it's impressive.
Him being from Jersey and him going to Rutgers, the way he runs makes a lot of sense. Trust me on this. But back to my point, the Eagles, they can win on the road.
Mm.
But I tell you, I know Dallas wasn't crazy impressive last week against Carolina. I think that's one of those classics playing down to your competition type of games.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, because like we saw it early in the season with Dallas, and they did that with Arizona, and Arizona beat them. They got them.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't let that happen this time against a really, really lowly Carolina football team. And that matters. That really matters. It's almost like the Lions. That game, they was down 26-14. And the old Lions would have lost that football game to a team that is not that good.
Mm-hmm.
But they end up pulling it out. So right now, the NFC is so interesting to me because I think if you're waiting on a scale of the four top teams in the NFC, we know who it is Cowboys, Eagles, 49ers, Lions.
Yep.
The Eagles are probably 3 and 4 in that order right now. I can't even lie. And I want to give credit to the Chiefs because one thing that people have not spoken about, because we talk about the lack of weapons that Patrick Mahomes has, their defense is
I mean, their
elite.
defense is good as
I
it gets right
mean,
now. I mean, it's the fact that this is the youngest defense in the NFL.
yeah,
Scary, scary.
very,
I mean,
very,
Patrick Mahomes has said it multiple times. This is the best defense I've ever played with, and
yeah.
he's absolutely correct, man. It is.
And how funny is that? Because that's just how the league works. He's working with the best defense he's ever had, and his offense is a little lagging behind now. How about that?
So I don't think it's a problem yet. At what point does it become a problem for the Chiefs with the fact that it's really Mahomes, Kelsey, and I guess you could say Pacheco, but their receivers, they're dog water, man. I mean, Rashee Rice, I know he's a rookie. You're seeing some flashes out of him. They tried getting Kadarius Toney involved in some interesting ways last night, giving him the football as a running back. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Kadarius Toney.
But he is just good as a gadget play. He's not someone that you can rely on to make 7 catches for 100 yards.
No, I'm with you on that, but they're going to have to make a splash at wide receiver in the offseason. I
Absolutely.
mean, you can't trot out Rashee Rice, MVS, and Kadarius Toney again. You just can't.
And none of them are reliable. And here's the thing: one of the things that drive me crazy is that you see a receiving core like that, and all you think, what's their ceiling? It's all about what their ceiling is. But
Mm-hmm.
what about the floor?
Oh, that
The
floor.
floor was like the floor was
Oh,
Monday, and you're in a big game and against a team that you just played in the Super Bowl just in this past February.
yep.
You might be lucky to make it to February with that receiving core, which would be a genuine shame with how good that defense is. You cannot waste a defense like that.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the AFC because the AFC is a hell of a lot more interesting to me than the NFC at
Oh
this
yeah,
point. It's looking like I'm not going to say it's likely, but it is highly possible that this is going to be the first time as a starter Patrick Mahomes will not be playing a home playoff game.
yeah, yeah.
And if it's, I mean, I'm going to say it. I think the Ravens are all but a lock to have a home playoff game, considering what's going on in their division right
You
now.
know, I picked the Ravens to win the AFC this year,
Mhm.
but sometimes I feel really stupid about that. And why is that? Because they play stupid a lot of the times.
Yes, they do.
I just the game with Cleveland, like it frustrates me because this team has all the tools to be dominant,
Yep.
all the tools. But it's been a trend with John Harbaugh that some weird shit like
The
this
dumb
happens.
shit is always going to happen. Yep.
Always.
Yep. I personally think that they're the best team in football. I still stand by that. I think the Ravens are the best team in football. And I mean, just looking at their schedule to finish out the year. I mean, they have the Chargers this weekend, which okay, like it's Justin Herbert as a one man army. Well, that
Literally.
yeah,
By the way, before you get to your point, Quentin Johnson being the guy that scorched Michigan makes me sick seeing what he did against Green Bay. I
did
was sick to my stomach watch
did
him drop that pass. And I said, damn, Only if he didn't drop it. Only if he would have dropped that damn pass, he took it for like 70 plus yards for a touchdown. That basically killed the chances of Michigan never coming back.
So I have to ask, did you see the video of him talking in his locker after the game?
I did not.
So he owned up to it. He said that he like I should have caught that. That's inexcusable. Blah blah blah. Like completely my fault. As he's saying this, I know that this is just probably a thing that is happening. But as he's saying this, one of the equipment guys comes up behind him in his locker and slides his nameplate out from the locker. He's making his rounds as he's saying that. Like it's something like straight out of like a Chappelle show skit. Like,
oh man, I gotta find that. That's funny.
I mean, back to the Ravens. They don't have an easy schedule by any means to finish the year. I mean, it's a fucking hard schedule for being honest. It's the Chargers, Rams, which okay, chalk up 2 wins there. Then you got Jaguars, 49ers, Dolphins, Steelers.
Oh.
So I mean that's a big time test. I mean
yeah.
that is a big time test for this Ravens team. And I realistically think that if you go 1, 2, if you go 3-3 here, you're happy.
I think even if you go 3-3, you're gonna have a 2-time MVP, Lamar Jackson.
So do you think that I know Hurts is the favorite for the MVP right now, betting wise. I don't see that if I'm being honest. I mean, yes, he's been phenomenal, but I don't see him ending up winning that award. Do you think it's Lamar's to lose at this point?
It's a 2-man race between those two guys, in my opinion.
Are you? Because there's a few guys that I mean, Brock Purdy's never going to win it. I know he's up there in odds, but Tua. I mean, I don't think he's even the most valuable player on his team, but it's a quarterback award.
Yeah.
Dak has quietly been having a phenomenal year, climbing rankings.
Yeah.
And you got to mention him, CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
He makes the playoffs.
I actually genuinely think this is going to be the year we see non-quarterbacks get votes at least.
I agree. I agree because Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill absolutely should be getting votes for this.
Two more guys. TJ Watt and Myles Garrett.
Yeah, that's who I thought you were going to say. Yep.
Oh yeah, those those teams would be just lost without those two guys.
Yeah. I mean, there are some interesting names though. I'm just looking through the MVP odds right now. Obviously, the quarterbacks we all mentioned, and then Mahomes, but then Josh Allen, Goff, not too far behind. Tyreek Hill, Trevor Lawrence is a sneaky one right now, I think, too, if they finish the year. If they end up with a 1 seed,
maybe.
I mean, I could see him getting votes. I don't see him winning it. And I just got to give a shout out to my man Josh Dobbs plus 10,000. Never gonna happen. Shout out to Josh Dobbs.
Comeback player of the year right there. Not well. Wait, never mind.
Okay, Damar Hamlin died.
Yeah.
Do you think? All right. I don't want to phrase this poorly, but can you just give like a lifetime achievement award for comeback player of the year to Damar Hamlin?
I mean,
like I get he died on the field, but like, can he win?
Say it.
What has he done? What has he done? Can he? I mean, he's been active for how many games? What has happened to Damar Hamlin this year other than fucking up when he was finally on the field, like to the point where the Bills lost the game, and having an ambulance on the field, retiring his number, hanging it in the ambulance. The ambulance.
I mean, did you see on Sunday where Doozy and Cardinal get taken up in the ambulance and they put the camera
always finds him. The camera always finds him.
I'm like, dude, really? Like, you're gonna remind us of that traumatic moment every single time someone gets injured? Come on, what are we doing?
Here's an interesting one for comeback player of the year, though. If Aaron Rodgers comes back and plays a game this year, does he win it?
He better not. Because he will be defeating so many odds, but it's very clear that they're done. And if he comes back, any little tiny bit of respect I have for him gone, because you are coming back to a team that's not making the playoffs. You want to come back because you want to prove that you're right. How big of a toolbox do you have to be to heal up all this time just to prove a point? The Jets are going nowhere. You're going to shower in all the glory. And for what? Because you were right? Typical Aaron Rodgers. Typical Aaron Rodgers.
You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong.
By the way, Tim Boyle being the starting quarterback of the Jets is actually crazy.
Laugh
And I
out.
don't know if you ran into his collegiate stats
Oh,
at all.
they're hilarious.
How in God's name did he get into the NFL?
I mean, here, I'm gonna pull these up and read them to everyone. So obviously Tim Boyle, if you're not aware, played at UConn and Eastern Kentucky. So some real powerhouses of programs. The most yards he had in a season was 2,134, and that was in 12 games, keep in mind. He never had a quarterback rating higher than 75, and his career high in rushing yards for a season was -7 yards. He threw for over 700 yards one time in 4 seasons.
Listen, I know Black Friday, we're supposed to enjoy this game. It's the first time ever, but legitimately, this might be the first game where Al Michaels might fall asleep on the air. We're going to see some real 2005 football with Larry Johnson towing the rock 32 times type of thing with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook or Israel Abanikanda. It doesn't matter. We're going to see a lot of running in that game because if you trust that man to throw the football, I don't know what to tell you. But also, what did they sign Trevor Siemian? What did they sign Trevor Siemian for?
They have him listed at QB2 right now. I don't get why you're not putting him in as your QB1 over Tim Boyle. Because if you think you're still somehow going to find something with Tim Boyle, Robert Saleh, I thought you were a lot smarter than that.
I want to defend him so bad because I would genuinely say I don't think this year is his fault.
No, it's not. I'm not even joking you. I had that legit conversation with my dad yesterday where he goes, yeah, like the Saleh guy, I feel like he's been doing a really shitty job this year. And I go, okay, so imagine, I can't believe I'm saying this. Imagine you're planning on having Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, one of the greatest of all time, coming in, being your quarterback, coming off a year where you had an elite defense and not much change there, if we're being honest. I mean, it's still a pretty damn good defense. You have Breece Hall coming back from injury, Garrett Wilson, all this talent, and your quarterback blows his Achilles out in 4 snaps, and you're back to the quarterback that they altered the future of their franchise for, and he completely fucking sucks.
Which they knew, and they still had him as the backup.
Yeah, no, I mean,
just to cover the tracks of wrongly picking him at number 2.
Man, I hate that I was a Zach Wilson guy in that draft. I will old takes expose myself. I thought he was going to be so damn good, man.
I thought he was going to be the guy that saved that franchise. I was sold on the pro day, and shame on me. I've been watching football for too damn long to get caught up in a moment like that. Shame on me. Don't hire me as a scout. I don't know anything.
Hey, at least this show was right about Sam Howell, it seems.
We hope. We just gotta get away from Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio because
But then otherwise in the AFC, I mean, it's wide open. I mean, there's any combination of realistically 4 or 5 teams that could be hosting home playoff games right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't believe I'm even saying this just because of how good their defense is. There's still a possibility the Cleveland Browns host a home playoff game.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And what that defense has been able to do has been just it's been amazing. It's like no other words. I mean, I think people thought Deshaun Watson was going to be semi back to normal because I think people just kind of sort of writing on the wall there. But what they've been able to do on defense has been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where to because we know the defense is good. Jim Schwartz is a defensive wizard at this point.
Yep.
But man, what they've been able to do has been unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and at what point do we see Joe Flacco, you think?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
And real quick before we move on, I just have to ask this question. How do you think Steelers fans feel knowing that they have the worst quarterback in their division with two starting quarterbacks out for the season?
For sure they were fooled by preseason Pickett because preseason you thought, man, this guy might be an
He might
MVP
take that
this
next
year. Oh
step.
my goodness.
He might take that next step.
He's not good. He's easy to root for, but he's not good. Maybe it has a lot to do with the offensive coordinator or whatever it
I'll
may
say that.
be.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that offense now that Matt Canada's gone. How much it will change, I don't know. But the ineptitude that they just continue to show that you got to move on from Najee Harris. He fucking sucks. They finally got rid of their offensive coordinator. They're at the point where they just need to feed Jalen Warren and call it a day.
And get George Pickens involved. I
Yeah.
mean, my goodness.
Yep. It's an atrocity. But Brandon, if you had to pick right now who you think the number one seed in the AFC is going to end up being, I would love to hear your thoughts.
It's going to be Baltimore by hook or by crook.
I I think that they'll host a home game. But I think the number one seed in the AFC is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I won't be surprised. I will not be surprised.
I mean, they have Houston, Cincinnati, Cleveland, the Browns, the Bucks, Panthers, Titans. Realistically, they'll probably lose two of those games.
Maybe, but I'm not. I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't believe I'm gonna say it. They got worried about winning their own division
Uh,
because
when I
the
when I
think
said that
the
they might uh, lose two of those games. A division rival within those two that they might lose two of those. So
yeah
we're on the same page. We're on the same page here, Brandon.
yeah
But I think they're a pretty damn good football team.
they are. It's just all on Trevor Lawrence,
Yep.
and he's been up and down. So we'll see.
So we got to talk about it. The This week's college football playoff rankings have come out, and we have a new team entering into the fold with the Washington Huskies at 4, rightfully so, in my opinion. Wolverines at 3, Buckeyes at 2, and Bulldogs at 1. Brandon, 2 and 3, the game this Saturday. Everything that's been going on with the Wolverines, this is arguably the biggest matchup between these two schools. You could say in the last 50 years, maybe ever, potentially, just for the implications that it has.
I think it surpasses last year because last year was just as big, if you ask me. But if Michigan wants to win, I'm going to talk about from the defensive end. If Michigan wants to win, two things. Number one, Travion Henderson is one of the most underrated players in college football. He's going to make a damn good pro when he goes. They did not have him last year. Chip Trainum is a good running back. Williams, I've got his first name escapes me. Good running back.
Mm-hmm.
Travion Henderson is a difference maker. Stopping him is going to be very, very, very important. And we have two of the best defensive tackles in college football. Kenneth Grant, I don't think he's draft eligible, but he's already an NFL player. That's a damn good. That's a damn good play. And Mason Graham, only a sophomore, and even as a freshman, that he was amazing. You can't stop Marv. You can contain him now.
Yep.
In the second half of that game last season, he didn't even exist. He did not exist. You have to key in on him. I know Emeka Ibuka's out there. I know Julia Fleming's out there. I know Kate Stover's out there. But I think the most important thing is that knowing, and it was kind of the same thing with CJ Stroud last season. If you get Kyle McCord uncomfortable, he will make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Getting him on the road in a hostile environment with that defense, that pass rush, which showed up last week against Maryland, even though the defense as a whole iffy, but whatever. It's very, very important to key in on Marv and let everybody else beat you. Which, pick your poison, but not really, because Marv is head and shoulders above everybody.
Yeah.
On offense, protect JJ McCarthy. That's it. That's it. Because the one thing about the run game, it's going to open up. And one thing that has been very, very clear that Michigan has had the physical advantage over Ohio State in the past 2 seasons. That has to continue. And considering there's been changes along the offensive line, but it hasn't been too much, especially mostly in the run game. But in the run game, you can wear them down. What I've noticed, because we didn't get to talk last week about Michigan and Penn State and how people were bashing JJ McCarthy for only having 8 completions. If you watch the game, the offensive line was going to get him killed.
Yep.
Point blank. So I don't want to hear that. But there is a very, very, very glaring hole on that Michigan offensive line. Is the right tackle position with Carson Barnhart. He's been awful these past couple of weeks. Awful. So I don't know if they make a change at offensive line going into this game, but if you protect him, you let JJ McCarthy step back in the pocket and let his arm win. Let his arm win. He's a good quarterback. I don't know why people start playing on his name after some subpar games. He's a good quarterback that can make plays. Let Protect him. I think Michigan has a really good chance of winning. But if not, they will not win this game. You cannot rely on the run game. You're not going to run it 34 times in a row and win.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
So it has to be a balanced attack.
I'm going to be honest. I do expect them to win this game this weekend. I don't want to jinx anything. I know that neither do you. I think the fact that it's home field advantage is going to play a lot into this. I mean, and it comes down to, I don't think Kyle McCord's that good, quite frankly. I don't think, I don't see it with him. I know we've seen the flashes, but Michigan's defense will I just think they'll make him look silly.
I think he's been subpar the whole season. And I do think that he has the ability to make plays. And that's what's really scary because while he's not the greatest, he does have the ability to
No,
make
that's
he
for
can
sure.
make some plays. So that's what really the concern is. And I will say this. He is going to be in a position where he has to win this game.
Yes.
Travion Henderson's good. The run defense for Michigan has been pretty good this season.
Michigan has the number one defense in the country.
Yeah.
Number one scoring defense in the country. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ohio State's right there behind him at number 2, yeah.
but I do think if Ohio State's going to win, Maryland gave them the blueprint last week.
Mm-hmm.
Quick pass, quick pass, quick pass, use your speed. Michigan's fast, but Maryland got track stars. And they eventually was giving Michigan fits on defense. Yeah. If you do that, Michigan's in trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree. That was the first time you really saw Michigan on the ropes at all this year.
And here's the
Not
thing.
that they
Here's
were
the
on
thing
the
too.
ropes. Not that they were on the ropes, but
I think it was. I think they was.
I don't think.
Maybe it's just a fan in me just saying like, "Oh my god, like we can't, like what are we doing? Like we can't put this team away." But I don't know, man. But I will say the only reason why, because like normally I'll be freaking out prior to this game because we struggled with the game before. This was the trap game, the look ahead game, all that, in my opinion. I think all gloves come off on Saturday, but that was absolutely a look ahead game.
No, I mean, yeah, at 100%. And now is it going to be a look ahead game for both of these two this week? Looking forward to Iowa in the Big Ten Championship. Who knows? Who knows?
I will say this. For what we have done to Iowa in the past 2 seasons, we would so clearly be a better Big Ten championship game than Ohio State. I think Iowa can really give them some fits. Defensively, that is. Offensively,
Oh, I mean,
it's
don't
gonna
get me
be,
wrong. I mean, they're a top five defense in the country. There's no doubt about it.
and I will say this. I would kind of be sick Michigan winning this game going to play Iowa because I would have loved for Michigan to get their hands on K McNamara. I would have loved it.
I'll tell you what, being in person on Saturday for the Illinois Iowa game, that may have been the ugliest game I've ever watched in person.
You should be entitled to compensation for having to watch that.
And it
That offensive malpractice that was.
had to go support the alma mater in Iowa City. Being an Illinois grad, my girlfriend's an Iowa grad. We went out and I forgot where I saw it on Twitter, but according to expected probability on who should have won the game when they lost, Illinois was the only team this week on the chart I saw that lost the game when they should have won it.
Oh, the Big Ten West. Thank God it will be defunct after this season.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of it on Twitter today. It's a sad day. This weekend's gonna be the last time we see that classic Big Ten commercial.
Oh yeah. Damn. That's a great commercial too, man. Yeah.
I
Brighter
it,
days ahead, I guess.
it still doesn't feel real, man.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
And it's not gonna feel real for a few years.
Yeah, I mean, look at it next year. Michigan got Texas and I think USC following. Like, the hell's going on here? Hope we beat the brakes on Texas, by the way, because I don't like these fans. I hope so. I hope so.
I'll say this: I don't like any fan of a Texas college football team. Doesn't matter the
Don't
university.
blame you.
Doesn't matter the university. I don't like a single one of them.
I don't blame you at all.
So that's probably gonna rile up some people if they hear that. But with that
That's
being
okay.
said, it's gonna wrap this week's episode. We will be back next week to discuss what is the biggest weekend of college football so far this year, and will be probably the entire sports year, honestly. And hopefully, we're discussing a Michigan W, but we appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We will see you next time.